little percussion opening. That's a percussion opening. I do not close with percussion, but I can open with percussion. But I want to point out, if you're in the mood, when you hit the link tonight, you will get 60 seconds of a woman conga drummer. And she's doing a good job. You don't know good conga from bad conga. You know, hey, sounds good, sounds not so good. I'm telling you, you hit this link, bailando, dancing, dancing. You know what I mean? Baile, get up, get down, get back up again. Hi, Lisa, hi, Kathy. Hola, bienvenido. Todo el mundo is welcome here. Okay. So, it's 6 o'clock. It's 6:01, technically. I'm in Dallas, Texas. You may or may not be in Dallas, Texas. It don't really matter because I'm digitally broadcasting, right? It is the 7th of January. If you're watching this and where you are is not the 7th of January, either you are not in this country or you are not watching on this day. Oh, hola, Redin Corsi. Hola. Buenas tardes. Or perhaps I should say, buenas noches. Okay, it's dark out where I'm at. Maybe not where you are. So, hello, hello, hello. God, this is going to be good. Because, listen, the United States used to be just Trump gave you material every day. Like if you talk to a late night host, hi, Kathy, they're really excited for the last couple of years because Trump provided them with a lot of material. As a comedian, they got a lot of material all the time. They were sick of it, but they got it. Now, finally, there's a breakthrough. There's something besides Trump to talk about, to be amused by. Hey, Travis. And that something is the American public. Huh? We can talk about the American public because they're just sitting ducks right now. It's just lush. It's like a garden with lots of different veggies and herbs growing, maybe even a side of beef. You know, I mean, that's how crazy it is, what's going on. So, what are you going to do? I don't look the gift horse in the mouth. I don't. I accept it. I'm at peace. I'm at one with the universe. So, on with what I was going to tell you. So, listen, I tried not to watch the news a lot of the time today, but it was compelling. I went to sleep trying to watch Biden's essentially the Congress, the joint session of Congress, complete their business and announce that Biden was the president-elect and would be the president on January 20th. No ifs, ands, or buts. I watched some of the speeches, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, I fell asleep. I woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning and or 3:15, and I could hear talking. My TV was still on a news channel. I open one eye and it says Biden, blah blah. I'm like, oh, all right, they finished their business, So then I'm trying to sleep, but I keep waking up and watching the news. I go to sleep. I wake up. I'm watching the news. Hi, Chris, and hi, Mark. Now, Kathy, good question. Kathy's asking, can we celebrate? Let's get to that in a moment. Don't let me forget that, Kathy. Bello, Mark McDougal, and entonces, Ann. So, so what happens is, I'm watching, and it's just a wealth of action, really. You had all day. I know a lot of you have seen some of the news. So all day, here's what you got. You got replays of videos and moments that make good TV of people banging up the Capitol, man. I mean, they was banging that bad boy up. So tragically, somebody was killed, and I feel bad, but I mean, she died doing what she wanted to do. She was fighting for the freedom. She was fighting for her president. She was fighting for her man. So bless her. She went out doing what she wanted to do. But I feel the tragedy. But moving on past her, because they're not talking much about her. It's extraordinary how little they're saying about her. So I wake up and the mayor of Washington, D.C. was talking, and she's trying to explain where was Washington, D.C. police. And she explained competently, along with the police chief of the Metro Police Department, that they have no jurisdiction at the Capitol. Please understand, Metro Washington, D.C. Police Department have no jurisdiction. They are not allowed to enforce laws on Capitol property because the Congress has its own police department called the Capitol Police. And it's their responsibility once you step onto the Capitol. Or in some cases, if there's say a threat against Pelosi, then the Capitol Police or the Secret Service might undertake her protection, not the Washington, D.C. Police Department, okay? So they were explaining all that, and they were essentially saying, we don't want to take the hit for this. You can't blame them. This was a public relations fiasco from a law enforcement perspective. So she's saying, we don't want to take the hit for this. We asked for National Guard. We didn't get it. We asked to be allowed to come in and help out. That request didn't come for hours, right? So it was crazy. So everybody was asking today, as early as 3:30 in the morning, as early as 6 p.m. last night, where was the police? Yes, I was just going to say, Joan, the chief of the Capitol Police is resigning. And, if he didn't resign, he was going to be fired. I mean, somebody was going to take the hit for not protecting the Capitol, and the obvious guy was the chief of the Capitol Police. Here's what a representative just said, a congressional representative. 2,000 police officers in the Capitol Police Department. That's pretty good for the small, and only 500 were on duty. And she rightly, it's a black woman, I don't remember her name, said, how do you not have every cop on duty? And I'm thinking, that's 25% of your force. That's ludicrous. That's freaking off the wall. I know something about security. Remember, I owned a gun range. I trained police officers. I trained security personnel. I trained civilians. And I know something about security, and that's off the freaking wall. If you've got 75% of your police department at a time like that off duty, you weren't intending to protect the Capitol. Okay? Now, Kathy asked, can we celebrate now? Because I said, yeah, Trump did refuse to send the National Guard, and the rumor today, by the way, Joan, is that Trump never did send the National Guard. What is being said, true or false, is that Pence had to step in, negotiate with the National Guard, and release them because Trump was unwilling to even answer the phone. Okay? So, back to Kathy. Kathy, can we celebrate now? The question arises because I said that the Congress officially accepted the results of the Electoral College. And the answer is, if what you want to celebrate is that the Congress has officially acknowledged Biden and Kamala Harris as the next president, vice president, yes, you can celebrate. All those obstacles are out of the way. There are no more legal obstacles available to the Trump group. I won't even call them the president or the administration. There's nothing available legally to them at this point that can prevent what's happening. Can we celebrate? Do we celebrate when there are thousands of crazy people roaming around planning an inauguration special? Okay? You can believe this. There's a guy in California, Swalwell, I think is his name. Swalwell, good guy. And he makes frequent appearances on liberal television shows. And he said, it's not, he said, this was real simple. He says, I'm following these people on social media. I knew they were planning trouble yesterday because he's being interviewed today. I know they're planning trouble for the inauguration. I'd like to know what they're doing for inauguration. If you're not aware, let me explain to you that the National Guard are not going to be leaving their post in Washington, D.C. until the end of the month. At the minimum, they are committed to staying, already committed to staying until January 20th, the end of the inauguration. They're not they're not leaving town. In addition, I'm pretty sure that all the police chiefs, I mean, the mayor said, yeah, we're here. You're going to see a whole different attitude. And some of you know that I think it's, Twitter shut them down till 7 a.m. That was no big deal. But Facebook and Instagram have banned Trump until minimum the inauguration is complete, and probably till the end of the month, so an additional 10 days. Facebook, of course, the whores that they are, me using whore media to talk to you, have committed to nothing. So, but Twitter and Instagram, not Twitter, Instagram and Facebook apparently felt that so much false information was being put out there. Now, here's an interesting turn of events that I want to discuss. And some of you asked me what was going on my Facebook with my friend Paul. What was I upset about? What was the deal with this guy, this post that I got kind of hostile. Well, Paul's an old friend, but here's the thing. There is this complete crazy thing going on that says that whole deal yesterday was put on by Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Man, you can't make, I can't make that stuff up. Somebody made that stuff up. But to grasp and to cling to this kind of conspiracy takes a whole lot of stuff. By the way, let me take a break to say hello to Aaron and Joan and Carrie and Chris and Becky. I'd already said hi to the rest of you. So welcome. So it's really intriguing how quickly a story that Antifa infiltrated this whole protest and managed to turn it into a riot. These young guys who wear black and do all this stuff, that somehow they were able to get themselves together and not dress in black, act like Trump support. Anyways, it's gaining currency. It's traveling at the speed of light. So just a reminder for those of you that have friends who believe this stuff, do not attempt to dissuade them to the truth. Do not attempt to dissuade them that this was an Antifa. Proceed with caution. These are very fragile people, and if they were to allow the truth to crack through this whatever shell, we don't know that they can sustain the hit. We don't know how fragile ego and heart and all of that is underneath that veneer that has grasped and is clinging to the idea that we're still the good guys. So please be kind to your family and friends who may be Trump supporters and are really grasping. Wait, I'm confused. Trump is back. He just tweeted. Okay, Travis, I'm not surprised. I don't follow his tweets. Carrie, did we figure out why there was only 1/4 of the Capitol Force on duty? No, we don't know the answer to why, but we do know two things. One, the police chief has resigned, but that's not all. He said that his officers acted valiantly against the crowd. Well, you all saw how valiantly they acted. Does he think the video is not commonly available, that they were running away or they were moving out of the way? And then he said they had metal batons, metal objects. Well, I guess they better call the Chicago police, because if you approach the Chicago police, even if there's only one of them, but there's never just one, with a metal object with the intent to hit them, you're going to get hurt. No matter what happens to the cop, I guarantee you, minimum, a broken arm, possibly a cracked skull. Just a minimum. Okay, so the idea that they acted valiantly in that regard is crazy. There's some of them that probably did act valiantly. There was one guy by himself. If you haven't seen that, it's an interesting video. He kept running up the stairs, turning around. The crowd kept coming. He'd turn around. Me, personally, there was one guy that kept getting up there before the crowd. I'd have cracked his skull. He'd have fallen down, let them trip over, and then I'd have ran. I'm surprised I didn't know that Antifa had infiltrated. Mark, is that what you mean? Antifa had a pizza party in Mom's basement, smoked a few, and watched Buffalo Point on CNN. Thank you, Ray Dean. And hello to you. Mark, the Democrats said they would steal the election by vote by mail, and they did it. Power to the people. All right. Kerry, that right, you hit them and then come for you. I think I read that wrong. Everyone knows this stuff. Well, I'm slow. I'm slow out the gate. So, let me synthesize this for everybody's entertainment and enlightenment. For your edification and enlightenment, there is no possible legitimate reason that 3/4 of the Capitol Police Department was off duty. There's not, no matter what will be said in the days ahead, there won't be a legitimate reason. Number two, the various footage seems to indicate that at best, there were a handful of Capitol Police officers who really tried to perform their duty with some zealousness. There is, in fact, as has been accused, an officer, I wouldn't say he was taking a selfie. There was a guy next to him who said, I wanted to, and the cop stood there. He had a mask on, so I don't know if he smiled, but, he didn't crack the guy's skull. So what Kerry was saying, that's right, you hit them and they come for you. Chicago police don't play. I've been around Chicago police. I don't know one of them. I don't know a single Chicago police officer that I've met in my 43 years of residing in Chicago that would not crack your skull at the drop of a hat. Now, I understand that you might want to be more reserved. You got a big crowd. You crack one skull, you might have to crack 20 skulls. Of course, if you're a Chicago police officer, that just looks like, appetizers and main meal and dessert. But I get these are not Chicago police officers. These are Capitol police officers. But clearly, even if they wanted to do the job, they would have been at a real disadvantage. Okay, and so, and then the men in the chamber, there were not, to my knowledge, armed officers inside the chamber of either the House or the Senate, which means that the officers that you saw footage of on TV, there was 4 or 5 of them. They had their guns drawn. Their hands were resting on they were pointing at a guy whose face was peeking through the broken glass. So here, I'm going to have to conjecture, because I don't have enough information, but I think it's worth conjecturing, that the woman that got shot probably got shot by a plainclothes officer. What's kind of tragic is that these plainclothes officers only had guns. A plainclothes officer doesn't carry what you call a John Brown belt. He doesn't have nightsticks. He doesn't have pepper spray usually. He doesn't have, might have some small pepper spray, but not the regular canister. Doesn't, might have handcuffs. Might have a knife, but that's not for fighting with. He doesn't have a flashlight. He doesn't have a taser. That's too much for a plainclothes. Not saying undercover. Nobody thought these guys were, hippies. These were just plainclothes officers who were apparently guarding the chambers, and their option was to get their brains kicked in by the crowd or to shoot. And so, of necessity, this officer fired one shot, and he landed up killing this woman. And that you cannot prepare for a riot with plainclothes officers. So, let me explain. When you see riot control, here's what you see. You already know this, but let's review it. You see a guy with a helmet and a shield. You see a guy with a darkened uniform. You see him with what do you call it? Exterior protection. He's got a flak jacket on. It's bullet resistant. It may be knife resistant, but not necessarily. He's usually wearing combat pants, usually black in color, sometimes army green, and then around their belt they have a handgun, usually a large handgun that is strapped to their thigh so that they can move about without it flopping around. They may or may not carry elongated nightstick. In other words, let me see, I'm trying to fit in. So a nightstick, let's pretend this is a nightstick. That's too small, right? That would be what you call a patrolman's nightstick. If you're doing riot duty, you add about a third of that on. That's a riot control nightstick. You will often have a shield, okay? So the men inside the chambers had nothing but firearms. That's pretty clear to me. Maybe some of them had a taser versus a firearm because when I look at their guns had some weird stripes on them, and I don't know the meaning of the stripes, but when I looked closely, the guns were Glocks. And Glock and taser, it's hard to really, they don't look like each other. Yeah, that's what Chris, did I mess that up? Riot baton? Yeah. So it's specific. It's specific. It gives you, the longer stick gives you more distance when you're confronted by a crowd. The shorter one makes it easier to carry when you're, say, a beat patrolman, you're in a car, getting out of a car. Nightsticks are cumbersome, really. Any form of nightstick can be a problem. Now, the guys in the chamber did have one other weapon, excuse me. Some of them had collapsible nightsticks. And that is something that's about this long. I have one. And then it's collapsible. It's collapsible, and it collapses down to about this size. And then if they are doing one-to-one combat, they flick their wrist, it comes out, and it's metal or it's a hardened plastic. They've got them both. And you can strike. The officer running up the steps, you saw him drop one while he was trying to flee the crowd. You saw him drop a metal nightstick. That was a collapsible nightstick, okay? So this is what was going on. So if you all you have is a collapsible nightstick, and I know he had the nightstick, the plainclothesman who's got the gun, the 4 or 5 of them gathered around, it's because it was on the table in front of him, okay? So there, what we're talking about is tools, resources. What options you have? You need options of force if you're dealing with a crowd, because you don't want to kill somebody for, say, breaking a window. You want to have more options. You want to reserve deadly force for deadly combat. The problem is if you are protecting people who you are under duty to protect, i.e. Congress people, this is your job, to protect their life and their safety, and there's a crowd coming, and you got, it's like they say, if all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If all you got is a gun, everything looks like a target. So, sadly, I'm sure that woman saw the gun. I bet my life she saw the gun, and she felt like he wasn't going to shoot, or she was so impassioned at the time that she was willing to risk her life, and tragedy results. So I just wanted to kind of cover, because I do know police tactics in large measure, not completely, and tactics have changed since I was involved in teaching and learning police tactics, but I thought you should know that these men who were inside the chamber were at a disadvantage completely given a large crowd. If it was 1 or 2 people breaking in, these guys probably would have resorted, because there were multiple individuals, that they themselves would have restrained 1 or 2 people, maybe burst in, right, and tried to restrain the person, handcuff them, take them away. You see that in court all the time. I mean, I can't tell how many times I've seen in court somebody gets unruly, and everybody moves. No guns are even allowed in most courtrooms. So in Cook County, Illinois, where I practiced law for 13 years, police usually had to check a weapon. There was usually an office where an officer had to check the weapon, because they didn't want these criminals who are getting ready to be sentenced to possibly life in prison to having access to a gun. So there was usually an absence of handguns available in case of. There were lots of nightsticks and handcuffs and pepper spray, but very few guns around. So each courthouse probably had its own rules. And then there were people who were armed, usually, are in the area. There were sheriffs or something who did carry a firearm, but they usually were not in close proximity to a prisoner, because you didn't want the prisoner to using you to escape. And you'll see every time a sheriff, it's usually a sheriff's department that's transporting prisoners, every time they lose their gun, somebody gets shot. I mean, that's about got to be well over 50% of the time. So what happened? So what's going on? I mean, if you turned on your television today or turned on your radio, the talk of 25th Amendment, let me address that in a moment. Talk of sedition, insurrection, rioting, application of what law and who's going to pay and how are they going to pay for this. And so 25th Amendment, it's come up at least on television dozens of times. Rachel, who I don't know if she's here, she's a listener. She asked me about 25th Amendment. I said, it's not going to happen. She said, well, why not? I have a friend who says it's going to happen. So I wanted to answer. I said, I don't see it happening. First off, read the 25th Amendment. I haven't read it in a while, but I did read it one time. And as I recall, if there's a physical infirmity which makes it impossible for the President of the United States to act in his capacity as president, then the Vice President and the administration, the secretaries, they intervene, or the Vice President, in unison with Congress, intervene. And once there's a determination that the President is unable to serve, then the Vice President takes over. It's much easier to make a determination somebody is not able to serve if you can prove incapacity. Incapacity means that I am no longer able to communicate. Typically, I'm no longer able to communicate, to instruct, to receive instructions, to process information. I have been in an accident. My brain is not working. I'm knocked out. I'm unconscious. I'm under the influence of significant drugs such that I'm in a induced coma. This takes, the cabinet comes and they look and everybody agrees and the doctor says, yeah, he can't hear you and he can't talk right now. Settled. What do you do when you're arguing there's a mental defect, mental incapacity? In other words, the incapacity is not a result of being able to communicate or to receive communication. You're arguing that the mental incapacity is mental illness. What is the standard? We don't have a standard for it. It's not in the 25th Amendment. It's not in the law books. The person's acting crazy. Well, that's a subjective standard. So you would probably have to start bringing psychiatrists. You'd have to start putting this all to the test. And I don't believe that in the time allowed, you're going to be able to demonstrate that this person can no longer make a reasonable decision. There's a good argument that he's crazy. And asks if he is removed using 25, can he later use insanity if he is charged? No, I don't think so, Ray Dean. I think that if using the 25th, for instance, I didn't serve in the military because I'm mentally incapable of serving in the military. Mentally incapable of serving in the military doesn't make me insane. It just means that whatever I'm going to be required to do in the military, I may be unable to exercise. A president being determined to be mentally incompetent due to mental illness merely means that at some point the determination was, can this person carry out this job? Doesn't relieve them of criminal culpability. Ginny, hi Ginny, JFK, just FK, JFK, I'm JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. I don't know JFK. Anyways, Ginny will give me more information, I'm sure. So no, insanity, mental incompetency is not insanity, and insanity is even a narrower version than mental incompetency. Under any definition of mental illness, insanity goes way over here on this spectrum. So if you've got a continuum of, mentally light retardation, mental defect of character, mental illness, severe mental illness, insanity would be way over here. And to use it in a criminal case, you have to show one of two things depending upon the jurisdiction you're in. One, I was incapable of distinguishing right from wrong. In other words, my mental illness was of such nature that I couldn't know I was doing the wrong thing. The other one, the other test that we used to use, and I don't know which one was eliminated after the Reagan attempted assassination, is that I am unable to comport my behavior to legal to perform legally. In other words, I am under a compulsion to act. I killed my 10-year-old because I was sure he was the devil, and I was commanded by God to kill my child, and I did it. I was acting under compulsion because I believed something that's crazy. Okay, but understand right from wrong. So that's a tough one, because it's kind of hard to say that you didn't know right from wrong, but that used to be one of the tests for insanity in the law. So I hope that answered the question, and I think that's a pretty good question. But we talked yesterday. Chris was the one yesterday that said, he may be trying to elude immunity by causing all this trouble. And ironically, Chris, looks like he's creating more legal problems for himself, because now he's, poked the hornet's nest, and now even Republicans are talking about holding him liable for the events yesterday. And so he's lost some support in the Congress, and he's gained some naysayers. So it's not a good plan. It was a great plan in this regard. Hat tip to Trump. It was an exercise in egomania of a nature we are hard pressed to have ever witnessed before. If that man is sane, marginally sane, imagine the ego that was put into service, or maybe I should say that needed to be serviced, that it was comforting to me being the president, to see people who cared so much about me. They were willing to attack the heart of the U.S. government, to possibly kill, and especially they were willing to die for me. How incredibly special I must be. I am, when they tell me I am like God, what more proof? What could people do that would be more demonstrative of their admiration, affection, loyalty to this person than to have rioted against the U.S. government and to put your life on the line? Now, having said that, I do want to tell you that when I watched the video footage, it doesn't look like anybody was really feeling like they were putting their life on the line. It looked more like an out-of-control party, right? It doesn't look like, it didn't have the taste of life and death. It looked more like a frat party that had gotten out of control. Like this, there was a movie, I didn't go see it, called X, I think it was. It's about a house party that's supposed to be manageable that becomes this unmanageable, right? And people doing all crazy stuff, and I didn't go see it. I saw the trailer. So that's more what it looked like. But it turns out that for at least one person, it was a life and death struggle that they lost. So, but what a demonstration, truly, and in a sense, begrudgingly admirable that you can command such affection. I don't get it, but I'm sort of, I don't say admired, I should say awed. I'm awed by it. I find it incredulous that people will hold somebody in such awe and such, it's not affection, but the word escapes me, but I'll come to it, that I would break into the core of the country that I grew up in, a building where people were located whom I have been inculcated since birth to respect, that in one fell swoop I was willing to combat police, despite all the uh, inculcating about law and order. It's like the Republicans last night were saying repeatedly, oh, we're supposed to be law and order party, law and order party. Look what's happening. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not awesome. I think it's awesome. I mean, reasonable minds can differ, but maybe not. Um, you know, there's so few politicians in my lifetime that commanded this kind of loyalty, and I don't get it, man. I've said it here. I've said it several times today. When people were talking about the lengths that people went through yesterday on behalf of Trump, I can only say what I've said here many times. It's the origin of the universe. It's as mystifying to me as the origin of the universe. I don't understand how the universe happened. I don't understand the Big Bang. I don't understand God, and creating the world in 6 days. None of that makes any sense to me, and nothing about this Trump phenomenon makes sense to me. I've read some psychological, articles about how this happens. I read them. I didn't get it. I've talked to people that, Stockholm syndrome, like they voted for him, and so in a sense they become his captives. So, they never wanted to make a mistake. Whatever it is, I don't get it. And I'd appreciate, by the way, if anybody's listening, that you don't try to explain it to me, because I've already investigated to the best of my ability any which way to try to understand. And because I said to you before, um, in order to be an effective trial lawyer, and I believe this to my core, you must understand every side of the case. You must certainly understand the side that is prosecuting your client. You can't simply understand your client and their defense. That's inadequate. If you walk into court and you say, well, my client's innocent, I can explain why he's innocent. That's important. But do you understand what they're going to say? Do you understand to its core what they're going to say, what their argument is? Can you offer up something to address everything they bring up? Now, by the way, in a criminal case, I don't have to explain anything. I may not explain anything, but I have it up here. What I mean is, the burden is always on the government in any case. If Trump ever faces a trial, the burden will be on the government. Anybody who's ever been in a criminal court, the burden was on the other side. So I, as a defendant, don't have to do anything until, and at least I believe, or my lawyer believes, that there's been what we call a prima facie case established against me. That is, that when the prosecution put on its facts, its evidence, it appeared without any additional information, refuting the charge, that the case had been proven against the defendant. Now the defendant should do what they can to demolish the case brought against them. And you usually, in a criminal trial, you don't really try to prove anything about your client. What you try to do is, through the course of cross-examination, you try to destroy the case that is brought against your client. So if they bring in a police officer and he testifies against your client, I'm not going to put my client on the stand ever for any reason, okay? But so the cop says, well, he did this, he did this, he did this. So then, would I put on my client to say, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't do this? No, I wouldn't. Because my client never wants to take the stand for a variety of reasons we could talk about someday. No, what I want to do is I want to take the policeman's case apart through the policeman. I want to take his police report. I want to show the defects. I want to punch so many holes in their case rather than my case. So I may know my client had an alibi. I may know that my client had some sort of defect that would have made it almost impossible for them to shoot a gun. And I may bring that evidence in, but before I get there, the first thing I have to do is I have to destroy the case that's being brought against them. Okay? And frequently, if you do a good job, you never have to do anything else. In other words, you don't have to prove up anything else. All you had to do under criminal law was discredit the case brought by the government because the burden was on them. So I'm looking at this situation. I'm trying to evaluate. I'm trying to look at Trump people who marched on the Capitol, and I'm trying to understand. And in most cases, I get it. If you've got a Black Lives Matter march, I get it. I get it. I get it at almost every level, I think, right? You see the women march. I get it. A million women march. I get why a woman would march, right? I'm totally on board. You got thousands of people calling themselves Trump supporters after 4 years of this administration. I'm like, I don't get it. You know, yo no puedo. I cannot. I don't understand. Yo no entiendo. And he said, imposible. Okay? So I'm sure, I'm positive that I will go to my grave not understanding what is happening in these last 4 years, and I don't know when this one. Maybe I'll be saying I don't understand what happened for 5 years or 6 years. I don't understand it. I appreciate that nobody's chimed in with, oh, it's simple, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. I don't. A Capitol police officer died. I'm sorry, I'm stunned. Ginny just said on my other Facebook that a Capitol officer died from actions that were taken yesterday. Huh. This is new information for me. I'm going to be curious to find out what that was about. By the way, a friend of mine texted right now on MSNBC. They're talking about the Trump supporter that put out this. I guess it was a text, and it said they're supposed to shoot BLM, Black Lives Matter, but they're shooting patriots. They're shooting us, patriots. Like, and my response was, they're supposed to shoot BLM. Can you imagine how distorted, how divisive, how polarized we are in America, where somebody can make a cavalier statement like they're supposed to shoot BLM. They're not supposed to shoot us. We're patriots. Perception, I'm a patriot. Perception, I'm defending the Constitution. Okay? That part, by the way, I understand about the Trump phenomenon. I understand they feel like they're patriots. What I don't understand is how they arrived at that in their passion for Trump. I understand how people might look at the United States and come to the conclusion that they're getting the short end of the stick. Economically, they've been oppressed. Sociologically, they've been oppressed. And mentally, they've been beaten. Spiritually, they're bereft. I can see somebody arriving at a conclusion that I have been screwed over, and so I am fighting for my country because I'm so, my head is. But to have surrounded myself in Trumpism is something I don't understand. Capitol policeman died from a stroke after the riots. Well, they also said that other persons had died. Is this now in addition to the three health deaths that took place last night? I'm just curious because I know they announced this morning, I was watching the police, and they said that 4 people had passed, 1 from gunshot, 3 from health issues. I had assumed it would be cardiac or stroke. It was a big crowd. People were getting pushed and jostled. So I wasn't surprised that people died in the crowd. They didn't mention at the time this morning that it was a police officer. That's interesting. Now, the problem, he's the 5th. Okay, thanks, Jenny. So there's one addition. By the way, so here's an interesting twist and turn. If I participate in a crime which results in death, everybody who was in that crowd could conceivably charge with felony murder. Everybody who is anywhere near that woman being shot can be charged under the law freely, without any further ado, with a murder charge. The murder charge is felony murder. If I was committing a felony And as a result, while I was committing a felony, anybody died. I'm robbing a liquor store. The liquor store clerk pulls out a gun, shoots at me. I don't get hit. The person behind me waiting in line to buy liquor gets hit and dies. I'm charged with murder. I'm sitting outside in the getaway car. My buddy says, I'm just going to go in and buy a fifth. I'll be right out. He goes in. He robs the liquor store clerk and kills him. I'm going to be charged with felony murder. So she died by a policeman. So everybody that was helping at that time, all those people banging, and that hasn't been brought up, and I don't understand why. Okay? So felony murder is certainly a legitimate charge. Now that it's been a policeman who passed, if you can demonstrate that he, but for the events, he would not have died. The problem is it's almost impossible to prove when somebody dies what's called a natural death, heart disease, stroke, whatever it is, that they wouldn't have died at that time anyways. I've been in those cases. It's almost impossible to prove that the but for. You have to prove the but for. But for me committing this crime, this person wouldn't have. Now, that's to the police officer. As to the woman that was shot, you give me the case, you give me a picture of somebody smashing that glass next to her, directly to her left, smashing the glass, and I'm pretty sure I can get a felony murder charge. I probably could get a conviction. Felony murder sounds better than breaking curfew. Trump just released a video condemning the riots. What a fucking asshole. I think you're prejudiced, Becky. We use that on gang shootings. We can use that on Trump's gangsters, says Ray Dean. You guys are good. Replying, Becky says, he incited it, just more lies. I'm disjointed, so it's 6:47. I went over time. I apologize. I hope that the information I gave, the information I presented, the manner in which I presented it, Ginny said, no, it's not, with 3 exclamation points, so I think she was refuting something I said, and I think she was doing it with passion, so I think she probably didn't agree with something I said. But I hope in the main, Ginny, Becky, Chris, Joan, Ray Dean, Kathy, Lisa, Carrie, Mark, and Ann, whoever else is here, Aaron, I hope that the information I gave, Travis, I almost forgot about Travis and Lisa, Kathy. So I hope the information I gave you at least gives you something to talk about at the dinner table tonight or tomorrow. You dig what I'm saying? I mean, listen, all I got is thoughts, man. You know? There's a sign I should, oh, by the way, click on the link and listen to that 1 minute of that woman playing conga. It's good, man. Lincoln has supposedly said that all I have as a lawyer is my trade is my time and my education. That's what we charge for, our time and our education. I'm not charging you, but I am giving you what I consider my time and my education, my experience. I'm sharing it with you, and I hope it's fruitful and productive. I bring my hands together. I close my eyes. I bow my head. And I pray, oh man, I pray, or I reflect on metta, loving kindness. And I think to myself, oh, may I be happy, healthy, and free from harm. May I be free from anger, anxiety, and fear. May this practice lead me to a life of greater peace and comfort, as difficult as it may be. May my mother and father, all my relatives, and all my friends be happy, be healthy, and free from harm. May they know the affection I always carry in my heart for them, and may they find a path to peace and comfort. And to those persons I find troublesome, I resent them, I harbor ill will. Here, in this moment, let me say I hope that they be the recipient of my goodwill and my kindness, and that they too are living their lives in comfort, peace, and even joy. And may all living beings, wherever they may be throughout the universe, not just on this planet, throughout the entire universe, let us radiate loving kindness. So all living beings be happy, healthy, free from harm. May all living beings live their lives in safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, Satu, Satu. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Mark and Ann. Thank you, Joan. I'm glad you do appreciate it. Thank you, Kathy. And anybody else that was here, I see that people left while I was reciting metta. That's okay. I went over time by 6 minutes. I apologize. I wish you all a good evening. I hope to see you here tomorrow. I'll be here at 6, whether you're here or not. Peace out.